Welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview top coaches, experts, authors, speakers, hear their stories of success, who they help, how they help them, and give you some ideas on building and growing your business. My name's Adam Packard. I am the host, and for the last 7 years, we've helped over 500 coaches, consultants generate more leads, conversations, and help them convert them into clients using LinkedIn. And today's guest is Jason Komosa. Jason is an expert in mental health and performance, and he's going to give you some ideas on how to tap into your best version of yourself and really how to create that version of yourself every single day. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode and get some nuggets from him. So listen in and hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back to I Need a Coach. I am joined today by Jason Komosa. Jason, welcome to the show.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. You and I talked about a few months back and had a great conversation. Just all energy, all fun, great chats. Similar, we both got young kids, so we had some stories to share there. But why don't we start here? Tell the audience a little bit more about you, your background, the work you're doing now, and kind of fill us in on some of the work you do.
Yeah. So currently, what I'm doing is helping. I'm a mental health coach that helps men diffuse stress, detach their self-worth from their work and their money, and delete the childhood generational trauma they inherited as boys. I've been doing this for about 10 years. Prior, in a past life, I was a former burnt out tech executive. So I helped launch Groupon here in Chicago back in the early 2000s. I was so burnt out, stressed out, anxious, you name it. I was super glued to my phone. And I needed to make a change. I needed to make an intrinsic change with my life. I had seen therapists. I didn't get what I wanted from them. I wanted an action plan or a blueprint. And I felt like the therapists I'd seen were lacking action. And so I essentially immersed myself into the world of philosophy, psychology, neurology, and worked with a coach and became his apprentice. I went through a certification, and sure enough, this is what I do for a living now, is really, again, help men rewire and upgrade their mental operating systems.
Interesting. So how did you find the person that became your mentor? And what was his background? And where did you start when you're like, okay, I'm burned out? Then all of a sudden, did you just wake up in the middle of the night? You're like, I need to make a change. I'm going to start studying psychology and neurology. And how did that kind of transition?
Yeah. So I actually, I was in the University of Chicago in a doctorate program to get a psychology degree, to get a doctorate. I was going to be a psychotherapist. And I dropped out.
That was after the Groupon?
Before. This is before Groupon.
Oh, this is before. Okay.
So essentially, I was a scared graduate. I didn't know what to do. I had a degree. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go back to school and get my doctorate because I don't know what else to do. So I was making this decision based out of fear. And when I came across the idea of what Groupon was doing, my intuition in my heart was just magnetic to what they were doing. I dropped out. I joined Groupon for a $35,000 base salary a year job and was one of the first 100 employees. When I left, we had about 14,000 globally. So it was a pretty wild ride. And I found myself. So Adam, one thing I didn't mention, I grew up with a single mom. Not a lot of money. We never had financial stability. And so the story I told myself for decades was, when I get some money, then I'll be happy. Then my problems will go away. And sure enough, I was fortunate to get some financial stability through Groupon and our IPO. And I was depressed. I was like, where is this intrinsic happiness that I thought would accompany the financial stability? And you ask kind of how I got in, how I worked with my coach. The very first time I was introduced, I was in a volunteering, it was called the CLA. It was Chicago Leadership Alliance. It was young entrepreneurs that were coming together to help the underprivileged people here in Chicago. And in that group, there was a coach, a Harvard-trained economist and psychologist, and we just hit it off. We just started talking, and I really liked what he had to say. And that just kind of organically snowballed into a relationship. Now, I will say, Adam, investing in coaching was one of the scariest things I've ever done, because I was never taught to invest in yourself. I was taught, if you are lucky or fortunate enough to have some money, you put it in the stock market, you put it in real estate, you put it in your whatever. I was never taught to invest in myself. And so my intuition says, yeah, we need to do this. It's expensive, but we need to do it. And the logical brain hijacked the intuition to say, no, we're not going to do this. So it took me a couple of weeks. I was in purgatory. I finally took the leap of faith. I invested in myself. And sure enough, it's been absolutely phenomenal. My past 10-year journey. I started coaching guys for free, taking 1 or 2 clients at a time. This is still, I'm doing startup stuff. So I'm kind of have my hands in startup sales and coaching on the side, nights, weekends, what have you. And that's kind of how I continue to build my practice to where it is now.
That's awesome. So, so you've been doing it 10 years now?
So I started, so it's been about 10 years. I started with part-time, again, on the side.
Yep.
I made this into my full business about a little about a year ago. I went all in. My wife had some pregnancy health issues with our son. And that essentially was the catalyst to propel me to do this, to go all in. Because I had to take off about a year of work. I didn't work. I supported Lisa and our son, Jack. And during this time, I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
And so,
So why did it take you 9 years to get to that point?
Well, so I joined Groupon. I was 24. And I left Groupon. I was just about 30 years old. And again, I was so burnt out. I was just stressed and I was tired. And so I'm looking for an answer. I'm looking for a solution that's going to help me live the life that I want to live, that I know I'm capable of living, to close that gap between here's where I'm at now, here's where I want to be. What action do I have to take to get there? Again, I'd seen therapists and I kind of was underwhelmed. I didn't get what I wanted, which was action. And Michael Balchan, my coach, he was just radically changed everything. He helped me see things in a new light. And again, unlearn that childhood trauma that we all inherited. Even if you didn't know your parents, you still inherited their trauma. And it's up, especially if you're a parent, it's your job to stop the generational trauma that has been handed down through your lineage. Yeah.
So when you talk to someone for the first time, so I'm curious, obviously I'm assuming you probably get referrals. Not sure if you start any like new conversations cold with people, but how do you start those conversations? And because, a lot of guys are kind of set in their ways and they're kind of hard to kind of break through the shell. So how do you kind of start that conversation and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. And the reality is what I do, I'm a big guy. You can't tell. I'm 6'7", about 265 pounds. So when I come on
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm a big dude. So when I come on in, I essentially share my stories. I'm vulnerable with them. I'm essentially showing them at a subconscious level, hey, Jason's opening up to me, and therefore it's okay for me to do the same with Jason. So it starts with kind of my vulnerability and my sharing my story. Because you're right. A lot of guys are they think they have this fixed mindset and they were born this way and this is that and that's how they are and end of story. And it's like, no, you can change. If you choose to change, if you want to make a change, you can do it. And the best way to expedite the changes you want is to hire someone who's been exactly where you are. And so I think for me, Adam, one of my unfair advantages is that a lot of the folks I support, they're business owners, they're CEOs, they're in tech or venture or they're, running an accounting firm. And they essentially want to work with me because I've been there. I've been through the challenges of scaling a business and raising money and board decks and all these things. I've been there firsthand. I'm not just some guy with a degree on the wall giving advice to a foreign subject or something that I don't really know much about. I am an expert at tech and building businesses. And so again, I know what these founders are going through. And it's my job to help diffuse that anxiety and the stress. And again, the self-worth attachment to the business. A lot of men, if they're business or even if they're in sales, right? If they're on quota, life is cherries and rainbows. Everything's great. But if they're below quota or the company is not thriving this month, they're in the dumps. They're depressed. And it's like, we don't want to live in our daily lives based upon external events? How can we equip you so that whatever happens externally, you're grounded, you're neutral, you're regulated, and not having this roller coaster of emotions?
So let's dive into that a little bit without giving away the farm and giving me $20,000 worth of coaching. How do you start that process?
Help me understand more when you say start the process. What do you mean?
Well, you and I have a conversation. I can relate to a lot of the things you say when I have a great month.
Yeah.
Things are great. When I have a slow month or a slow stretch, of course, I'm like, what's going on and what's wrong?
Yeah.
So how do you help someone detach from that and be more neutral?
Yeah. So it starts with, again, kind of changing the lens, giving the man an opportunity to say, we're going to honor what you feel, and we're also going to change the lens. We're going to try to look at this from a different light. We're going to try to see other alternative ways or other things that other narratives that we can craft around the story. Because it's not my job to necessarily fix them, right? My job is to help them fix themselves. And so the more that we kind of get vulnerable, the more that we're honest with each other, we're opening up, we're building this rapport, this relationship. Again, men seem to trust me because I'm a guy's guy. I drink whiskey. I work out. I like listening to rock music, and I talk about my feelings, and I fucking cry. And I'm here to be that champion for men who've been silenced for so long. They're walking around with this toxic junk and this mental gunk, this emotional gunk. And I want to take a power washer to it. I want to help give you that new upgraded life that you're seeking. And especially for if you have kids, again, the household energy, it's typically the parents, right? The parents are setting the tone for the kids. If the father comes home from work and he has a bad day at work or whatever, and he's in a bad mood, or you can just tell energetically he's not optimized, his kids are going to say, what's wrong with us? What do we do wrong? And you don't want to do that for your kids. You don't want to have that constant daily feeling of I'm not acting or being the man I want to be for my kids or myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you are coaching, when someone engages with you, do they have weekly sessions? Is it monthly?
Yeah.
Is it, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I kind of have a small, medium, and large package. So usually, if we look at the medium package, it's 3 calls a month. So we'll do 3 60-minute calls. We're doing things like trauma audits, fear inventories. We're giving actual homework. So the idea is to move the needle action-based so that every single call we have, we're continuing to work on where we want to go. And each client I work with has their own kind of wants and needs when it comes to what their pains are and what they want to work on, right? A lot of times guys come to me and they'll say, I want to get better at work. What we find out is that there's challenges at home that are impeding the progress or the quality of work at work, or vice versa, right? Oftentimes guys think it's segmented or siloed. We're all one big bucket. Human beings are just one big bucket. It's all in there. And so we can't necessarily just cherry pick, we want to talk about work when we know that there's challenges at home with the wife or the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have calls let's say 3 times a month. And then do they have regular activities they need to do daily? Is there homework for them, or what's that
There
like
is,
on their end?
Yeah, there is homework. It's optional, right? So the more that they the more energy they pour into the program, the more they're going to get out of it. So I assign things like books, YouTube videos, depending upon the client, right? I have a CEO client who's I kind of don't want homework. Send me something that's 5 minutes or less. And so I'm okay. Whereas other folks might want to really dive in and spend an hour or 2 a week on some homework. Awesome. I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah. I totally get that. So you say some books. So let's dive into some of the books that you recommend to help.
Let's do it.
If guys can't afford your coaching, but really want to learn something and how they can, what do you got?
So the first one, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. This is it's 1 page a day. Literally, you read 1 page a day. It gives you a lesson for the day of stoicism. And for me, I love it because it's easily digestible. It takes less than 2-3 minutes to read. I start my day off every single day with this because If I get sucked into the reactive mode, right, jumping on email or LinkedIn, people want my attention. They want, oh, Jason, what? I'm going to start my day proactively, and I'm going to read. So I typically read the Daily Stoic, which is by Ryan Holiday, and then the Daily Dad, which is by Ryan Holiday. And essentially, it's a father version of the Daily Stoic. You have one page per day. I always take notes. I don't read off of iPads or whatever. You see highlights. You see it's all marked up. Again, one page a day. This is very easily doable if you choose to make time to do it. 5 or 10 minutes. You don't need to set an hour of time to read. So those are the two books I would start with. Anytime someone asks me about books, these are the two. Now, if you're talking about like a non-one page a day book, I love The Four Agreements. If you've heard of The Four Agreements, I think it's one of the greatest books ever written. Check it out on Amazon. It's less than $10. And if you live your life by
Don Miguel Ruiz wrote that.
Yep. Yeah. And if you live your life by these 4 agreements, you're going to be good. You're going to be set.
Got it. So, in addition to the kind of that daily, the reading and kind of getting your mindset right, morning routine, talk about what your morning routine looks like. Is that part of your process with the guys that you work with to make sure they start their day off more proactively? Absolutely.
So if you think about it, our day, right? I like to use the analogy of AM and PM bookends. So you start your day, you have a bookend, then there's a shelf of books, and then you end your day, and that's the PM bookends. And usually those 2 bookends are when we have the most control of our day. So it starts with, really, your day starts the night before, which means sleep. What kind of sleep are you getting? How would you rank your sleep? Are you super glued to your phone, checking Slack or email or TMZ right before you go to bed? Because that's not going to help you get quality sleep. So a lot of the things I talk about with my clients are, again, it's optimizing sleep. It's waking up. It's not checking your phone, because just like you wouldn't invite 75 strangers into your bedroom when you wake up, that's what you're doing when you're opening your phone. You're inviting all this, you're flooding your brain with all this activity. It needs time to wake up organically. So yeah, we audit, we do time audits. And like, before we even make changes, right, we want to accept where we're at now. Self-improvement starts with self-acceptance. And so an exercise I use with a lot of my guys is to have them just audit their time now. Don't change anything. Just notice, where are you spending your time? Where are you giving your time? Because when you have the data, we can take that and say, okay, how are we going to ultimately shuffle around some of these tasks where you're spending an hour on, again, Facebook, or you're watching 2 hours of Netflix. Like, we want to, like Tetris, we're going to play around with things, and we're going to see how can we make your day on autopilot. So it's just, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. This is where my time is going. And I have concrete boundaries around those. A lot of guys will push aside almost anything for work or money. And I used to be one of them. I would not exercise. I would say, I'll exercise tomorrow. I got some deals to close, right? Or I'll read tomorrow. All these things I pushed aside for work and money, and that didn't serve my highest purpose.
Yeah. How do you, because you're so right. I mean, you wake up, your phone's there, you check your email, and yep. I would say most people probably do that. They're not disciplined enough to turn it off for an hour in the morning. I have stretches where I turn it off, and I have stretches where, oh crap, I check my phone. I probably shouldn't have, because now I've got fires to put out.
Yep.
But how do you help people get out of the reactive mode and more into a proactive mode? Because, everybody wants to feel needed, right? And when someone sends you an email or has a request or wants to talk to you, you want to, reach out to them. You want to reach back to them and make them feel good because you reach back out. But how do you balance that, getting work done, but not being too reactive to things that happen? Because unfortunately, I see email now as almost like a communication tool, whereas it probably, whenever I get emails, I always tell people this is their agenda. It's not necessarily my agenda, right? So how do you kind of combat that and help people be more proactive?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my heart is to start with identity, meaning, what is the best ideal version of you? What does he look like? What is he doing on a daily basis? How is he living his life? And then what you want to do is say, okay, I'm going to emulate him, the optimal version of me, I'm going to do my best to be that version of me. I'm going to copycat him. Too many times we let our feelings drive the show. And that doesn't serve our highest purpose. If we don't feel like working out, we don't feel like cleaning the garage, we don't feel like eating healthy. And so we don't. But the reality is that we're not in control. If we, the human being, our version, are not in control, that means our feelings are. And that's not good. So we start with identity. Who do we want to be? And what types of action is that person doing on a daily basis? Right? Is that person ignoring the family dinner for doing more work? No. Is that person putting on or focusing their attention and energy on work and giving the leftovers, the energetic leftovers to their family? Like, we want to be the ideal version of ourselves. And so that starts with, again, identifying what is it that version of us is doing every day. And then we do it whether we feel like it or not. Because so many times, there's going to be times where you don't feel like cleaning up Salesforce. You don't feel like doing the dishes. Guess what? You do it anyways. Why are you arguing with reality? You just get it done.
I'm assuming you're not, obviously no one's perfect. You have days where you don't live up to your ideal self. You check your phone in the morning.
Yeah.
You do things that is not your ideal version. How do you not let that kind of deter you from who you want to be?
I treat the day like a basketball game. 4 quarters. You have like the morning, like the early afternoon, the late afternoon, and the evening. And so if you have a bad first quarter, are you going to let that fuck your entire game? Right? If the NBA team goes out and they have the Suns have a shitty first quarter, they can either say, okay, like that was terrible. And like now it's in our head and we're going to suck. Or we could say, hey, look, that was quarter 1. It's in the past. It's over. We're entering quarter 2 now, and it's a whole new game. So not allowing yourself to beat yourself up about it, to give yourself the permission to say, you know what? I checked my phone early this morning. That wasn't my best self. I'm going to forgive myself, and I'll try better next time. As opposed to, God, I'm such an idiot. What the fuck? I'm such a loser. I'm so dumb, or whatever. A lot of men will make it worse they'll exacerbate the feeling they don't want to have by compounding it with anger, frustration, rage, stress, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Good stuff. So let's talk about 2024, your business, where it is now, where you see it going this year, what you're doing creatively to maybe market yourself and generate clients. Not sure if you've got a full client load, if you're always looking for clients, but kind of walk us through what your plan is for this year.
Yeah. So the majority of my business, Adam, is one-to-one coaching. So I typically am supporting, again, high-performing men. I would like to do more, maybe like semi-private group coaching, where 5 to 7 guys, maybe a 3-month cohort. I also want to continue to infuse the technology ecosystem here in Chicago. I want to be that go-to person for tech and VC when founders or folks want or need mental health support. And they say, hey, look, I want to get better at these things, right? There's nothing wrong with these people. They're not broken and they don't need fixing. The goal is, hey, I want to get better at these things and I want someone to help expedite that progress.
Yeah.
And that's why guys hire me, because I'm able to basically say, because like you can figure it out on your own. The analogy I love to use is if you go from New York to LA, you can take a private jet with me and go 700 miles an hour with precise calculations and an expert pilot to get you there on time. Or you could ride a unicycle. Either way, you're going to get to the destination. One's going to probably just be a lot more harder. One's going to be a lot more harder, a lot more tumultuous and difficult. Whereas, again, you work with me, you're on a fast track. It's fast tracking to where you want to go and what sort of life you want to live.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah. No, this has been great. You obviously kind of walk the walk, and I know in our first conversation, I was like, this guy is awesome. I just want to have another conversation with him. So regardless if we ever work together, it's always good to have good people in your network.
Yeah. Yeah, man, we'll always be friends. And the same. And likewise, it's when you have an energetic connection with someone where it's like, hey, look, like we're cut from the same cloth. We have good, same or similar intentions. And ultimately, it's about giving back and helping others. Like that's what I'm about, man.
Yeah. One more question. So I know you charge you're not cheap. Let's just go there, right? For what you do. So do you ever get price objections? And what is the main reason why people choose not to work with you?
Yeah, all the time. Most guys are afraid to invest in themselves. Going back to the idea of what we inherited as boys, we were taught, if you were born between 1970 and 2000, most likely you were taught, put that money in the 401k, right? Or the S&P. And how asinine is it, Adam, that we were taught, hey, go out there, start a business or work for a business, make money, and then take that money and then give it to someone else and keep your fingers crossed and hope that they make a return on your money, when instead you could take that same money and pour it into yourself and see the results. Like, the ROI is insane in coaching. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study that shows like the average ROI is like 7 to 10x. So it's like, how are you going to get a quick return like that? It's going to be difficult to find other investment vehicles to get that return. So again, it's more about unlearning. Like, hey, look, I get it. It's scary. It's scary to invest in yourself, especially if you've never done it before. But oftentimes men, the logical brain says we need to feel ready to then commit. But it's actually the opposite. You need to commit, put your stake in the ground, and then you'll feel ready. Yeah. Anything meaningful in your life, right? Like think about marriage, think about graduating college, like anything meaningful in your life usually has some sort of fear that accompanies that meaningful event. So it's going to be scary. It's not supposed to be fun and easy. The whole point is it's personal training for your mind and your soul. We're going to get you to be sore, but it's growth. You're shedding that weight and that old skin, and you're becoming that next best version of yourself.
No, that's awesome. Very cool. So how can people, if they want to know more about your work, how do they find you?
Yeah, best is just to check me out on LinkedIn. Jason Komosa. Check me out on LinkedIn. I have my website up there, and I have my Calendly link if you want to book a strategy session call. But yeah, LinkedIn is kind of like my number one go-to for all things coaching. Awesome. Well, let's do this again. We can dive into maybe a little mini session in the future. Just you and I. That'd be kind of fun to give people a little taste. So but I appreciate you coming on the show, and keep doing the good work. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Much love. Absolutely. Talk soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of I Need a Coach. If you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate your dedication. Putting this podcast together takes a lot of time and energy. In return, we only ask one thing, which is if you could please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps our show get in front of more people so we can help more people. This is Adam Packard signing off. Keep coaching, keep thriving, and see you in the next episode.